Hi everyone, so today we're going to talk about WARSPACE. This is a change from all my Farmer World videos, and I'm still playing Farmers World, so don't get me wrong. Both games are incredibly good. Always great to kind of diversify into different games. It helps when the economic model is very similar, which WARSPACE has a very similar model to Farmers World. So if you play Farmers World, you basically will get the idea of what WARSPACE is about. Very similar resource tokens as well. So if you got in Farmers World, you got food, you got wood, you've got gold, and as it's in Farmers World, gold is used for both crafting and mining in the game as an expense, and food is just used as an expense to mine, and even wood is usually used for just crafting. And here we've got an extra crafting material, stone. So they basically have taken that Farmers World kind of model and then added another resource, stone, for the crafting, which in my opinion kind of makes it last a bit longer. Because if you just have like one material, then everyone's just doing that one material, and it's very, it doesn't take long before there's too much of it. But if you split between two materials, then all of a sudden there's a bit more life and longevity in the economic model. So I do like that they've added stone into this. It just makes the game last a bit longer. So I think so far I'm really impressed with this game. Not just that, just the graphics. The graphics are really nice. Yeah, so like I think a sign of a really good game is firstly really nice graphics, because they kind of understand what players like. So that's one sense. The other sense, they do have to understand the economic model, and if you've just basically used a very similar model to very successful games, then that's one other way to succeed. That you just use the same model, and as long as you become a popular game, which WARSPACE is becoming a very popular game right now. A lot of people either have heard of it or are buying the items and are all just waiting for the release, which is end of January or start of February, which will be very highly anticipated. So in terms of the actual buildings, so in order to play the game, you need one of these buildings. So you just only need one as a minimum. Maximum is 5, which you can kind of mix and match between what resources you want to do. Currently the cheapest is stone at 443 wax, and in wood at 495 wax. Whereas like gold and food, right? Usually when these games start off, they're usually most expensive because the buildings have been dropped. So people just need the materials like gold and food in order to start mining with their buildings. So hence why these resources are more prized. Yeah, so gold is 850 wax, which is quite a high price tag. And food for off the farms is 890 wax. So if you imagine, if you wanted to buy like 5 of these, that's going to be quite a costly task, especially when you compare against other games, of course. But in a sense, if this game is successful and the return that you get is fairly high, then it's justified, right? So I never worried too much about the price tag of the game, but I worry about what the return will be, because the return and the price have to be correlated. You can't have a high price with a low return, and if you have a low price with a high return, either one thing's unsustainable on one front or another. So I think there was a game called Arena of Glory where the return was insanely high, that you'd get your return in 1 or 2 days. Basically the game just basically crashed, and they had to readjust the economic model. So you never want a game that has a too high of a return, but you never want a game with a too low of a return as well. So it's kind of this really finely balanced situation. I think WARSPACE has probably found a good balance in the economic model that it's following with Farmers World. And we've added the extra crafting material, I think that prolongs the game, and not just that, they've added something called levels. So you can level each of your cards, so which is kind of what you kind of really want in a game, with especially if you start accruing like too many low level cards. So firstly, you can level your one card to, currently once the game releases, you can get up to 6, but the maximum is apparently 12 levels. So your cards are going to take quite a while before they actually start reaching their peak. So that's going to keep a lot of people interested. People aren't just going to withdraw, especially when they know that they can keep upgrading and they can keep generating more resources and have a much more high return in the future. And in terms of leveling, how do you level? So there's smart blending. You either blend 3 level 1 cards into 1 level 2 card, which gives you the chance of increasing the rarity, which we can see down here, that there's 3 rarities. There's a common, there's a rare, and there's an epic. And basically with these next level raises, you can either get this one, or you can blend 5 cards and just get 2 cards of the next level, which kind of saves you half a card. So this is where it's also very strategic. Do you take the gamble to get a higher rarity and the next level, or do you just take the next level and have a cheaper blending cost? So I think that's one thing that you want to decide as a player. Currently, I think depending on the costs and the pricing, so I think it really depends on the pricing of each material, whether you actually will know what route to take. Currently there is people that are blending 3 cards to 1, just because they want to gamble on increasing the rarity. The rarity, basically the generation of resources aren't extremely too large in difference, but the cost is incredibly different. So if we go to the white paper, that's going to explain a lot of these things. So if we go to the common model, which is for the common cards, so firstly, the cost to craft is, as you can see, gold mine 2000, stone 2000, wood, gold is 300. So for gold, it's always 300. And we can see that farms are actually the most expensive to craft at 3000 stone, 3000 wood, and 300 gold. And I like the idea of the stone and the wood, that in order to craft a stone kind of building, you need 3000 wood, and in order to craft a wood building, you need 3000 stone. So they're kind of entwined with each other, which is always a very positive sign, which you kind of can think up strategies, like if you have a lot of stone, then craft a lot and make a lot of wood buildings, and if you have a lot of wood, craft a lot of stone buildings, which is going to help you generate more wood. So basically gold isn't too bad, because it's like I kind of find this really weird where the cost of mining gold costs gold, which kind of defeats the purpose, if you know what I mean. Like you'll mine at level 1 5 gold, but you minus 1 gold anyway, so technically you just have 4 gold, and then you've got the cost of whatever 1 food is worth. I think food is going to cost a little bit more, but you'll still end up with some positive gold at the end. The one thing that's really weird is the farm. Like it produces 3 food, but the cost is 3 gold. So if you ever got the problem where gold was the equal cost of your food, you would make nothing. But if gold was ever higher than food, you'd actually lose out. But I think it's made so that food is always going to be more expensive, just because it's so. If you look through here, food is heavily demanded, particularly say when you consider lumber mills. It needs 2 food, whereas like if you have a level 1 building and a level 1 mill, and you're only producing 3 food, but it costs 2 on your lumber mill, doesn't leave much food for the rest. You could have like a stone quarry and like a lumber mill here, and then they'll use 3. So technically one farm will supply food for enough for the quarry and the lumber mill. But then you've got your extra gold costs, and the gold also uses 1 food. So you're actually, the demand for food is actually going to be pretty high. Hence why it's not a bad idea to actually be heavy in producing food. And yeah, vice versa of gold as well. Gold is also going to be used quite a lot. As you can see here, if you produce 5 gold at level 1, minus 1, so you've only got 4 left. You use 2 for your quarry, 1 for your lumber mill, but when you consider your food farm, actually uses a lot too. So you're actually going to want to produce a good amount of gold as well. So that's when having 5 slots is going to be kind of tricky. So you actually want very high level farm buildings and gold buildings. So you actually have it, so you can actually have enough to supply for the farm and the gold mine, and then have spare for your stone quarry and your mill. And that's how you're going to balance your expenses out. And as we jump up here, we see the same thing. Like the cost for the gold mine is actually the same cost, but instead of producing 5, they produce 10. So that's the reason why you want the higher rarities. The higher rarities will sometimes produce more resources, with either lower cost or higher production resources. For stone quarry, it's actually cheaper resources, like cheaper costs, but the same amount of resources. Whereas if we look at the common for stone, it's still 10 as well, but except it's 1 food, 2 gold. And if we look at here, it's 1 food and 1 gold. So you actually save 1 gold in that sense. So hence you gotta do the math, you gotta work it out, and see what's gonna be worth your while. And the economic model is, the epic model is that nothing has any cost. So everything you produce is free. But they're epic buildings, which is quite rare. There's only a 1% chance that you get them. Whereas rares are 10% chance, and you got 89% chance of getting a common. In terms of a roadmap, this game is doing very well. It's developing very, very quickly. Like it started in Q3 last year, and then I think a lot of people started hearing about it in Q4, and so far in Q1 they've actually done quite a lot of sales. There's been a lot of engagement with the community, and yeah, they've whitelisted and done their drops, so hence why I've got these buildings, and then recently we've got these packs of resources. As you can see, 1 pack of wood is 353, and it gives you about like 4,000 wood, and the same with the stone packs. And yeah, there is a thing called like a premium pass, which gives you kind of like guaranteed access to the future drops. These premium passes got up to like, 5,000-6,000, which is kind of really expensive. But they've come down quite a bit since 1,430. And why is that the case? It's because like everyone's gotten a drop, they don't really value the passes anymore. But I guarantee you, once another drop comes along, these passes are going to go up in price again. So it never hurts to actually hold on to these, especially at this pricing. It's not too bad. Especially when you know in Q2 that there's new buildings, new mining modes, new characters, and yeah, I think that pass is going to be popular again in Q2, but we're only in January, so we've got another few months before those drops might come along. We still need to launch the game, make sure it's actually a good game, successful game, then we'll know what's, if that pass is actually going to be worth it. I bought one of these passes quite early on, so I've actually ended up getting a really good deal from these passes, because they give you, they guaranteed you access, which got you some really good items. So I got some really good items. I did sell some of the epics just because I believe, because with epics the cost is actually insanely high. So for me to blend like 3 epics, that's yeah, very costly. Like a lumber mill is 3,500 wax. Same with stone. You imagine trying to blend 3 of these, and it's quite a costly exercise. Whereas it's much easier to level up a common than it is to level up an epic. So with commons, you know, we're talking like $400 or $500 wax. And say like we take the gold mine, it may start off at 5, then go to 15, so basically they triple. With the epic, starts on 15, then 45, so with a level 2 common, you produce 15 as well. So just epics have no cost, but whereas commons do. But for me, it's much easier for me to level up a common and do 45 of the resource than it is for me to level up a gold mine for an epic, which is, it gets you to 45, but you know, that's the thing. For like commons, I can get to level I can get to 45 as well. So that's kind of where that conundrum is. So do you want to have the epics with no cost, or do you want to have the commons with quite a heavy cost? But even if it's heavy cost, it's not too bad, because as long as you produce a good amount of food, you know, you make it sustainable for you. So then that's not too bad of a problem. You can kind of, in a sense, no, you've got enough resource production that you're going to still profit in a good way. And I'd rather produce 45 of gold with these extra costs than to produce 5 at an epic level, but have no costs. You know, it's rather I'd rather produce 45 than 5, right? Because with an epic level, that's just an extremely costly exercise. If we look at the costs of a gold mine, that's 5,500, and you need minimum 3 of these, which is going to cost you in excess of 16,000 wax, which is extremely expensive. Whereas getting to that same level for a common is much cheaper. Hence why I think for a lot of people, they will probably go after commons, and I don't think you'll be too, you know, worse off if you go with commons anyway. I think having a couple of rares and 1 or 2 resources is going to be extremely helpful, just because of the cost advantage. Say like with gold, it's like, yeah, just one food and 1 gold for the costs. Whereas if we look at the same model, 1 food, 1 gold, except you produce 5 more gold with the rare model. So obviously the rares are going to be more profitable, same to epics. It all just comes down to pricing, but I think you do want to have some better pricing in terms of at least having 1 rare for food or 1 rare for gold, so that you always, you know, have a good amount of profitability, and you're not at the wrath of the economic models, and you can kind of change between those 5 different slots. Yeah, like if you don't, yeah, I probably should have shown you this picture already, how it has 5 slots. Alright, so okay, these don't actually show you those 5 slots, but it just shows the crafting. So these are quite old pictures which have not been updated. So yeah, very much what the game was going to look like anyway. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say about the game anyway. If you've got any questions, post below, and I'm happy to explain a bit more about this game. Obviously when they haven't launched yet, so there's going to be a limited amount that I can actually show you in terms of this game. I do look forward to it when it does release, and I can show you a bit more about the game. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this game. It's going to be hopefully very, you know, successful, same like Farmers World has been, and hopefully we all do well out of it. And if you aren't in it yet, you've still got time to research into this game. Until then, yeah, like good luck playing, everyone.